Reflection of symmetry is a line of symmetry that can divide an object in half, and it will be equal on both sides of the object. Use this as an example for reflectional symmetry. By cutting this pizza in half down the middle, both sides of the pizza are equal on both sides. This pizza has an infinite number of lines of reflection because it is a circle. Reflectional symmetry. Reflectional symmetry can also be called line symmetry. Line symmetry is lines that can divide a figure into two congruent halves. An example of line symmetry can be shown on this square. By drawing a line through the top line of the square and the bottom line of the square, you can see that this first half and the second half are congruent. A square has 4 lines of symmetry. If you draw a diagonal line going through 2 vertices of a square, you can see that this half is now congruent to this half. Going through the sides of the square, you can see that this half is now congruent to this half. The last line of symmetry for a square is the opposite diagonal. This half of the square is now congruent to this half of the square.
Rotational symmetry is when you can rotate an object an X number of degrees and it can return back to its original shape to the eye. This cookie can be used to show rotational symmetry because it is a circle and it can be rotated X number of degrees and still return to its original shape. If I was to turn this 180 degrees, the cookie would still look the same because it has rotational symmetry. Rotational symmetry. Rotational symmetry is when a figure can be rotated onto itself. Its rotation must be less than or equal to 180 degrees. It has rotational symmetry because you can turn it less to or equal than 180 degrees and it will fall back onto itself. If you took one of the corners and made a rotation in this direction for 180 degrees, it would make the same shape.
For point symmetry to even happen, it has to have rotational symmetry. It's when you can turn a figure 180 degrees and it lands back on itself. See, when I turn this cookie 180 degrees, it lands back on itself. You can see half a circle, when you rotate it 180 degrees, it does not land back on itself. The curved edge is on the opposite side. On itself, it has point symmetry. Point symmetry is a figure that can be rotated onto itself with a 180 degree rotation. This is also similar to rotational symmetry. You take the middle point and you rotate it around itself. So if I rotate this 180 degrees, it turns back into the exact same figure.